They thought the cafeteria was their kingdom, until the quiet black girl they cornered turned their little lunchroom circus into a public disaster. Zaria only wanted to eat in peace. But Tyler and his crew needed an audience, a victim. And one viral humiliation to feel powerful? Big mistake. They spilled her food. Shoved the camera in her face. Twisted every word. Then pushed her past the final line. But when Tyler raised that bat, the girl they called weak moved once, and the whole cafeteria forgot how to breathe. The cafeteria at East Harbor High was already roaring by the time Zaria Coleman stepped through the double doors. Metal trays clattered against the serving counter. Students shouted across tables. Laughter bounced off the walls like the whole room belonged to people who had already decided where everyone fit. For Zaria, it was her first lunch at a new school. And all she wanted was simple: get her food, find a quiet seat, survive the first day without drawing attention. But the moment she entered, conversations near the center table slowed. A few heads turned, then more. It was not curiosity. It was the sharp, uncomfortable kind of attention that made someone feel like they had walked into a room where a joke had already been written about them. At the largest table in the middle of the cafeteria sat Tyler Maddox, leaning back like he owned the place. He wore his East Harbor baseball jacket with the kind of arrogance that came from never being told no. Beside him, Brock Hensley was scrolling through his phone, always waiting for something ugly enough to post. Mia Caldwell sat across from them, smiling, with perfect sweetness, the kind that never reached her eyes. Tyler noticed Zaria first. His grin widened slowly. He tapped Brock's arm and nodded toward the entrance. Brock looked up, saw Zaria, and immediately lifted his phone, pretending to check a message while switching on the camera. Zaria moved through the lunch line without reacting. She could feel the looks, the whispers, the small laughs passing from table to table. She took a tray, chose a sandwich, an apple, and a carton of milk, then turned toward the seating area. That was when Tyler called out loudly enough for half the cafeteria to hear, "Hey, new girl, you lost or something." A few students laughed. Zaria kept walking. Tyler raised his voice. "I mean, this is East Harbor. You sure you didn't walk into the wrong school?" More laughter followed. Louder this time? Because everyone knew Tyler expected it. Mia stood up suddenly, waving at Zaria with a fake friendly smile. "You can sit over here if you want," she said, her voice sweet enough to fool anyone who was not paying attention. But Zaria saw the empty space Mia pointed to. It was right beside Tyler's table, right in the open, surrounded on all sides. A state, not a seat. Zaria gave a small, polite nod, but chose an empty table closer to the side wall. She sat down, placed her tray in front of her, and breathed once, slowly. She had no interest in becoming part of whatever game they were playing. That calm response annoyed Tyler more than any insult could have. He wanted embarrassment. He wanted fear. He wanted the new girl to shrink in front of everyone so he could prove, once again, that nobody entered East Harbor without learning who controlled the room. Brock began filming openly now, angling the phone, so Zaria's face stayed in frame. A crumpled napkin flew from Tyler's table and landed near her tray. Then another. Someone pushed a milk carton across the floor with their foot until it bumped against the leg of her chair. Zaria looked down at it, then back at her food. She said nothing. Near the serving counter, Ms. Elaine Porter, the lunch supervisor, saw everything. Her eyes moved from the napkins to Tyler, then to Zaria. For 1 second, it looked like she might step in. Instead, she raised her voice weakly and said, "Keep it down. Everyone." She did not say Tyler's name. She did not take the phone from Brock. She did not walk over to Zaria's table. And that tiny act of cowardice was all Tyler needed. Permission did not always sound like yes. Sometimes it sounded like an adult choosing not to say no. Tyler pushed back his chair and stood. The cafeteria noticed immediately. He walked toward Zarya with slow, exaggerated steps, enjoying how the room quieted around him. New students need to learn the survival rules around here, he said, loud enough for every table to hear. Zarya finally looked up at him. Her expression was steady, not angry, not scared. I'm not here to cause trouble, she said. Her voice was calm, but it carried just far enough that answer should have ended it. Instead, it made Tyler's smile vanish. Her calmness felt like defiance. He wanted tears, shaking hands, a cracked voice. What he got was a girl who refused to give him the performance he needed. Mia saw his irritation and moved quickly. She stepped behind Zarya's chair with a cup of water in her hand, then accidentally spilled it across the seat. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, Mia gasped, but her eyes flicked straight to Brock's camera. Zarya stood before the water soaked through her clothes. Brock rushed closer, filming her face. Look, she's about to lose it, he said, narrating a lie before anything had happened. Around them, students leaned forward. Some laughed. Some watched in silence. Ms. Porter froze again. Tyler bent down and picked up Zarya's lunch tray. For a brief second, the cafeteria went still. He held the tray in both hands, smiling like he had just found the perfect way to finish the show. And Zarya, still standing beside the wet chair, finally understood the truth. This was never just lunch. It was a trap. But what Tyler did not know was that the girl he was trying to turn into a joke was not nearly as helpless as she looked. Tyler Maddox lifted Zarya's lunch tray just high enough for everyone to understand what was coming. For one frozen second, the cafeteria held its breath. Then he flipped it. The tray crashed against the floor with a sharp metallic slap, sending the sandwich, apple, an open carton of milk across the tiles. A streak of red sauce splashed upward and landed across Zarya's white shirt like a stain placed there on purpose. The room erupted. Some students gasped. Others laughed because Tyler was laughing. And at East Harbor High, too many people had learned that laughing with Tyler was safer than being noticed by him. Brock Hensley moved in instantly. Phone raised. Camera pointed straight at Zarya's face. He did not film the food on the floor. He did not film Tyler's hand, still hanging in the air after flipping the tray. He filmed Zarya, waiting for anger, waiting for tears, waiting for one wrong movement he could turn into a headline. Look at her, Brock said loudly, making sure his voice was recorded. She's about to snap. Mia Caldwell covered her mouth with both hands, pretending to be shocked, but her eyes betrayed her. They were bright, amused, hungry for drama. Zarya looked down at the mess near her shoes. Milk ran between the tiles. The apple rolled beneath a chair. Her sandwich lay crushed under the edge of Tyler's sneaker. She could feel the sauce cooling on her shirt, feel the heat of every stare pressing against her skin. But she did not shout. She did not shove him. She bent down slowly and reached for the tray. Tyler stepped forward and planted his foot on the fallen sandwich. Don't forget that, he said, grinding it into the floor. Pick up your dignity while you're down there too. A wave of laughter moved through the center tables. It was loud at first, then uneven. A few students stopped laughing when they saw Zarya's hand pause above the tray. Not because she looked weak, but because she looked too controlled, too calm. Like every insult was being placed somewhere deep inside her. Not ignored, not forgotten, just measured. In the far corner of the cafeteria, Nolan Pierce sat alone with his untouched lunch. His fingers tightened around his fork. He knew Tyler's rhythm too well. Start with a joke. Create an audience. Force a reaction. Then pretend to be the victim. Nolan had been through it before. Last semester, Tyler had shoved him into a locker and laughed while Brock filmed it. By the next morning, the video online made Nolan look like the joke, not the target. So now, watching Zarya kneel on the floor while Tyler towered above her, Nolan felt the same cold fear crawling back into his chest. Zarya stood with the tray in one hand. Her voice was low, steady, and clear. "Move out of my way." Tyler leaned closer, close enough that the room could feel the threat, even if nobody wanted to name it, or what he asked. "You gonna hit me?" He turned his head toward Brock's phone. Everybody heard that. "Right, she's threatening me." "I didn't threaten you," Zarya said. Mia immediately stepped in, her voice sharp and fake with concern. "I don't know." "Zarya, your eyes look really aggressive right now." She looked around at the nearby students, inviting them to agree. Like, "I'm actually scared." That was when Ms. Elaine Porter finally walked toward them. For a moment, Zarya thought an adult had come to end it. But Ms. Porter stopped several feet away, nervous eyes moving from Tyler to the watching crowd. "Both of you," she said weakly, "stop making a scene." The words hit Zarya harder than the spilled tray. "Both of you." As if she had invited this. As if standing there covered in sauce, holding her ruined lunch, was the same as humiliating someone in front of half the school. Zarya looked at Miss Porter and understood something important. The truth could be standing in the middle of the room, obvious to everyone, and still be ignored if the wrong person was responsible. Tyler smiled again. Ms. Porter's weakness had fed him. He lifted his chin toward Brock, signaling him to keep filming. Then he shifted his body closer to Zarya, blocking her path. "You heard the teacher," he said. "Stop making a scene." "I'm trying to leave," Zarya answered. "No," Tyler said softly. So, only the nearest students could hear. "You're trying to act tough." Brock adjusted his angle, cutting Tyler's blocking arm out of the frame and keeping Zarya centered. Mia whispered loudly to the students beside her that Zarya had dangerous energy. The lie was being built in real time. Brick be brick. If Zarya raised her voice, she would be called unstable. If she moved too quickly, she would be called violent. If she stayed silent, they would keep pushing until silence became impossible. From the corner, Nolan slowly pulled out his own phone. His hands trembled, but he angled it low between two lunch trays and pressed record. Unlike Brock, he filmed everything Tyler's foot on the food. Brock's camera in Zarya's face. Mia feeding the crowd. Ms. Porter standing uselessly nearby. No one noticed him. No one saw the small red recording dot glowing in the corner of his screen. For the first time that day, Tyler's version of the story was not the only one being captured. Zarya tried to step around him. Tyler moved with her, still smiling. Then, without warning, he reached down and grabbed the strap of her backpack. He yanked it hard. Zarya's shoulder jerked back, her balance breaking for a split second as the cafeteria exploded into shouts. And in those next few seconds, what had started, as bullying crossed the line into a real attack. Tyler's hand clamped around the strap of Zarya's backpack, and with one violent yank, he dragged her backward into the narrow aisle between the cafeteria tables. Her shoulder twisted sharply. The tray in her hand slipped and hit the floor again, rattling against the tiles. A few students shouted, but their voices died almost immediately, swallowed by fear and uncertainty. Everyone could see Tyler had pulled her. Everyone could see Zarya had not touched him. But nobody moved. Nobody wanted to become the next person. Tyler turned into entertainment. Brock raised his phone higher and shouted, "Yo, she's trying to hit him. She's trying to hit Tyler." His voice cut through the cafeteria before Zarya even had a chance to steady herself. That was the trap. Noise first. Panic second. A false story third. If the crowd heard the lie enough times before understanding the truth, Tyler would already be halfway to winning. Brock knew exactly where to point the camera. Not at Tyler's hand on the backpack strap. Not at Zarya stumbling from the pull. He framed only her face, her tense shoulders. The moment after the attack, making it look like she was the danger instead of the target. Zarya caught herself against the edge of a table, the metal corner pressed into her hip. But she forced herself to breathe. She looked Tyler directly in the eyes. "Let go of my bag," she said. Tyler released the strap slowly, smiling as if he had done her a favor. Then he stepped forward and slammed his shoulder into hers, hard enough to knock her sideways. Zarya's palm landed on the table to keep from falling. A carton of juice tipped over. Someone near the serving counter whispered, "This is going too far." But whispering was not the same as helping. Zarya straightened, her voice lowered. Calm but firm. "Do not touch me again." For the first time, the cafeteria went almost silent. The sentence hung in the air, clean and undeniable. It was not a threat. It was a boundary. But Tyler saw exactly what he wanted to see. He turned toward the crowd, spreading his arms. "You all heard that, right?" he called out. "She just threatened me." "I heard it," Mia shouted instantly, stepping into the performance like she had rehearsed it. She said it like she was about to attack him. Her eyes swept across nearby students, daring them to disagree. "I'm serious. She looks dangerous." Brock swung the camera toward a cluster of confused students. "Did you hear her threaten him?" he demanded. One boy opened his mouth, hesitated, then looked away. Brock smirked, as if silence were confirmation. The lie was growing legs now, moving through the room faster than truth could catch it. "Ms." Elaine Porter stood near the serving counter, frozen with one hand pressed against her radio. She had seen Tyler pull the backpack. She had seen him shoulder check Zarya. She knew exactly who had started it. But calling security meant naming Tyler, and naming Tyler meant trouble with the principal, the team, maybe even Tyler's parents. So she did nothing. Her silence became another wall closing in around Zarya. Tyler felt it. He could feel the room bending toward him. Not because he was right, but because people were afraid. He stepped closer again. Zarya moved back, keeping space between them, both hands open in front of her chest. It was not a fighting stance. It was a warning without aggression, a way of saying she did not want contact. But Brock shifted to the side, lowering the camera just enough to cut out Tyler's forward movement. On his screen, Zarya looked like the one preparing to strike. Then Tyler grabbed the sleeve of her white shirt and jerked it hard. A button snapped loose and skittered across the cafeteria floor. The laughter stopped in pieces. First at the nearby tables, then at the center table, then across the room. Even students who had been enjoying the show could feel the change. This was no longer a joke. This was no longer teasing. Tyler had crossed into something uglier, something that made the air feel heavy. Zarya stepped back again. Her breathing stayed controlled, but her eyes sharpened. "Back away," she said. Mia suddenly screamed. "She's gonna hit him." The effect was immediate. Students jumped back from the aisle, chairs scraping loudly against the floor. A wide circle opened around Zarya and Tyler, turning the cafeteria into an arena. Tyler looked around and smiled. This was exactly what he wanted: space, cameras, fear, and a crowd ready to believe that whatever happened next was Zarya's fault. Nolan Pierce, still hidden near the corner, kept recording. His hands were shaking now, but he did not stop. His camera captured what Brox refused to show: Tyler advancing, Zarya retreating, Mia lying, Ms. Porter freezing, and the crowd being manipulated in real time. Tyler backed away for half a second. Not to end it, but to make the next move bigger. He turned toward the baseball team's table. where equipment bags had been dumped beside the chairs after practice drills. Slowly, deliberately, he reached down and pulled out a wooden baseball bat. The room went dead quiet. He turned back to Zaria, lifted the bat in one hand, and raised it high enough for everyone to see. That was the moment the cafeteria understood the truth. This was not bullying anymore. This was a public attack. Tyler Maddox stood in the center of the cafeteria with the wooden bat raised in his hand. And for the first time all afternoon, no one was laughing. The room that had been roaring with jokes, whispers, and cruel excitement fell into a strange, terrified silence. Even Brock's voice disappeared behind his phone. Even Mia, who had been feeding the chaos with every fake gasp and every poisoned word, took one step backward. Tyler did not need to swing yet. The threat was already doing what he wanted. He wanted Zaria Coleman to panic. He wanted her to scream, stumble, run, or throw her hands up like a frightened target. He wanted the entire school to remember her, not as the quiet new girl, but as the girl he broke in front of everyone. But Zaria did not run beat. She stood beside the table where her lunch had been ruined. Her shirt stained. Her backpack twisted on one shoulder. Her eyes were not on Tyler's face. They were on his shoulder, his elbow, his wrist, his hips. She watched the small signals most people missed. The movements that came before the movement. Tyler mistook her stillness for fear. But it was not fear. It was focus. Every part of her body had gone quiet. Not because she had frozen, but because she was reading him. Tyler, put it down, Miss. Elaine Porter finally shouted from near the serving counter. Her voice cracked with panic. Far too late to sound like authority. A few cafeteria workers stepped out from behind the counter, but none of them moved close enough to stop him. Tyler glanced at them and smiled, as if their fear proved he was in control. Then he swung. The first strike came down toward the table. Not directly at Zaria, but close enough to make the message clear. The bat slammed against the edge with a violent crack. The table jumped. A plastic cup bounced off and rolled across the floor. Students screamed and shoved backward, chairs scraping in every direction. Brock kept filming, but now his hand shook so badly the image blurred. Mia retreated behind two students, her confident mask slipping as she realized Tyler had taken the performance further than even she expected. Zaria did not flinch the way Tyler wanted. She shifted only half a step, just enough to stay outside the line of the swing. Her breathing stayed controlled. Her hands remained open. She was still giving him a chance to stop. Tyler saw none of that. All he saw was the crowd. All he heard was the panic. He thought he had finally cornered her. Not so tough now. Are you? He snapped, lifting the bat again. Drop it, Zaria said. The calmness in her voice embarrassed him more than a shout would have. Tyler's jaw tightened. He stepped in closer and swung a second time. This one, much nearer to her body. That was the mistake. Zaria moved before the bat completed its arc. She slipped to the outside of the swing by half a beat. Close enough that the rush of air brushed past her sleeve. Her left hand caught Tyler's wrist. Her right hand locked over his forearm. She did not punch him. She did not kick him. She did not attack out of anger. She used his own forward force against him. Her hips turned sharply. Her foot shifted behind his stance. His balance broke before he even understood what had happened. In less than 3 seconds, Tyler went from attacker to weightless. His body flipped sideways and hit the cafeteria floor with a heavy crash that echoed through the room. The bat flew from his hand and slid beneath a table. Spinning once before, stopping near the legs of a stunned freshman, Tyler lay flat on his back, gasping, eyes wide with shock. The boy who had controlled the room all afternoon suddenly could not even find his voice. Zaria released him immediately and stepped back. Both her hands went up, palms open, visible to everyone. She put distance between herself and Tyler, then spoke clearly enough for the nearest phones. the cafeteria workers. And Ms. Porter to hear. I only defended myself. For a moment. Nobody moved. The cafeteria was frozen. Brock's phone was still recording, but his mouth hung open. Mia stared at Tyler on the floor like the script had betrayed her. Nolan Pierce, hidden near the corner, kept his own phone steady despite his trembling hands. His video had captured everything from the beginning, and above the serving counter, unnoticed by almost everyone. The security camera had also seen the full truth from a perfect angle, Tyler raising the bat first. Tyler swinging first, Zarya retreating, and Zarya stopping the attack only when she had no other choice. Then the cafeteria doors burst open. 2 school security officers rushed in, followed by Ms. Porter shouting over the noise. Tyler groaned dramatically from the floor, suddenly remembering how to play victim. Brock found his voice again. She attacked him, he yelled. She just slammed him. Zarya turned toward the officers, hands still raised, expecting them to ask what happened, expecting someone to mention the bat, expecting the obvious truth to matter. Instead, one guard pointed directly at her and said, "Step away from him." Now, the second moved toward Zarya first, not Tyler. And in that instant, while the bat still lay under the table and the real attacker was being treated like the injured party, Zarya understood that the fight was not over. It had only changed shape, because now the school was about to rewrite the entire story. The cafeteria doors slammed open, and 2 school security officers rushed inside just as Tyler Maddox was still lying on the floor, gasping like he had been the one in danger. The wooden bat remained under a nearby table, but no one looked at it first. No one asked who had brought it. No one asked why Zarya Coleman was standing several feet away with both hands raised and her palms open. The officers saw Tyler on the ground, saw Zarya standing, and made their decision before a single question was asked. "Step away from him." One guard ordered. "I already did," Zarya said, keeping her voice steady. He had the bat. He swung first. Brock Hensley immediately shouted over her. That's not true. She attacked him for no reason. His phone was still in his hand, recording the aftermath now that the worst part had already happened. Mia Caldwell stumbled forward with fake tears shining in her eyes. "I thought she was going to kill him," she cried, pressing a hand to her chest, as if she had been the one traumatized. Around them, students murmured in confusion. Some had seen everything. Some had only seen Tyler hit the floor. But in that moment, the loudest voices began shaping the truth. "Ms.?" Elaine Porter stood near the serving counter, pale and frozen. Her mouth opened once, then closed again. She had seen the bat. She had heard Tyler threaten Zarya. She had watched Zarya retreat again and again. But with security in the room and Tyler groaning dramatically on the floor, Elaine looked afraid to say the wrong thing. Her silence landed like another accusation against Zarya. One officer moved closer to Zarya. "You need to come with us." "Why?" Zarya asked. "He attacked me. Come with us now." The guard repeated. Before Zarya could answer, Principal Richard Halden appeared at the cafeteria entrance. His suit jacket sharp, his expression colder than the tiles beneath Tyler's back. He scanned the scene quickly, Tyler on the floor. Students filming. Zarya stained with sauce, the bat barely visible beneath the table. Then his eyes stopped on Zarya. "Miss Coleman," he said, "you need to calm down before this gets worse." The words struck harder than the fall Tyler had just taken. Calm down, as if she were hysterical. As if defending herself from a raised bat was the problem. Zarya looked at him and understood immediately. Principal Halden was not here to find out what happened. He was here to control what would be said about it. "Check the camera," Zarya said. The security camera saw everything. So did half the cafeteria. "We will review the situation," Halden replied smoothly. He had a bat. Miss Coleman, Alden said, lowering his voice. Do not make accusations. You cannot support. A bitter silence moved through the students nearest them. Everyone could see the bat. Everyone could see it. Yet somehow, Zaria was the one being warned about accusations. Tyler was helped up and escorted toward the nurse's office like an injured victim. He leaned heavily on Brock, groaning louder whenever a phone pointed at him. Mia followed, whispering that Zaria had lost control. Meanwhile, Zaria was led out through the opposite doors, past rows of students who watched, without knowing whether they were witnessing justice or a cover-up. By the time Zaria reached the hallway outside the cafeteria, phones across East Harbor High had already begun to buzz. Brock had posted a clip video. It started exactly after Tyler hit the floor. There was no spilled tray, no backpack yank, no torn sleeve, no raised bat, no first swing. The caption read, "New girl attacks East Harbor baseball captain in cafeteria." Within minutes, students were sharing it with shocked emojis, angry comments, and guesses about who Zaria was. The lie had escaped the room before the truth could even stand up. Inside the discipline office, Zaria sat across from a narrow desk while a staff member slid a blank statement form toward her. Write what happened, the woman said, and it may help if you admit you lost control after being provoked. Zaria stared at the paper. I didn't lose control. The woman gave a tired sigh, as if Zaria were making this harder than necessary. Sometimes the school is more understanding when students take responsibility. Zaria understood the trap immediately. If she wrote that she had lost control, even under pressure, they would use it as a confession. They would turn her self-defense into violence. They would turn Tyler's attack into a misunderstanding. They would turn her words into handcuffs. She pushed the paper back. I'm not signing anything like that, Zaria said. I want to call my father. And I want every cafeteria camera preserved before anyone accidentally deletes the footage. The staff member stiffened. At the doorway, Principal Halden had just arrived in time to hear her last sentence. For the first time all day, his expression changed. Not much, just enough. His eyes narrowed, and the polished calm slipped from his face without another word. He turned away from the office and stepped into the hall. Zaria watched through the small window as he pulled out his phone and made a call. But that call was not made to protect a student. It was made to protect the school's reputation and Tyler Maddox's family. By the time Zaria Coleman was brought into Principal Richard Halden's office, the meeting had already been arranged like a trial where the verdict had been written before she entered. Tyler Maddox sat in the chair closest to the principal's desk, with an ice pack pressed against his shoulder. His face twisted into a painful expression that looked almost practiced. Brock Hensley stood behind him, phone in hand, ready to replay the only part of the video that helped their story. Mia Caldwell sat beside Tyler's parents, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, even though there were no real tears left to wipe. And across the room, Ms. Elaine Porter stood near the bookshelf, arms folded tightly, looking like someone trapped between what she had seen and what she was afraid to say. Tyler's mother looked Zaria up and down before Zaria had even sat down. This girl is clearly a danger to the school environment, Mrs. Maddox said, her voice sharp, polished, and full of authority she had not earned. My son could have been seriously injured. He had a bat, Zaria said. Tyler groaned softly, as if the word itself caused him pain. It was just practice equipment. He muttered. She overreacted. Mr. Maddox leaned back in his chair, expensive watch flashing under the office lights. I think we all understand what's at stake here, he said. Our family has supported this school for years. The baseball field did not build itself. The threat was wrapped in politeness. But everyone in the room heard it. Principal Halden cleared his throat and folded his hands on the desk. We are not making any final decisions yet, he said, though his eyes barely touched Zaria. However, We do have to consider the level of force used in Miss Coleman's response. There would not have been a response if Tyler had not attacked me first. Zarya replied. Mia immediately sat forward. That is not what happened, she said. Zarya threatened him. I heard it. She told him not to touch her again in a really aggressive way. Zarya stared at her. I told him to stop touching me because he pulled my backpack and shoved me. Brock stepped in quickly, holding up his phone. The video shows what she did. He tapped the screen, and the edited clip began playing. It showed Tyler hitting the floor. It showed Zarya standing over him. It showed students screaming, but it did not show the spilled tray, the backpack strap, the torn sleeve, the bat raised over Tyler's shoulder, or the first swing. It began exactly where the lie needed it to begin. Principal Halden watched the clip with a grave expression, as if it were complete evidence instead of a carefully cut illusion. This is concerning, he said. It starts after he attacked me. Zarya said. Mrs. Maddox gave a cold laugh. Of course it does. There is always an excuse. Zarya looked toward Miss Porter. The lunch supervisor's face tightened. She knew. Zarya could see it in her eyes. She had watched the whole thing unfold from the serving counter. She had seen Tyler turn humiliation into violence. One honest sentence from her could shift the entire room. But Ms. Porter looked down. The silence was worse than a lie. Mr. Maddox placed both hands on the arms of his chair. I want her suspended immediately, he said. And until this investigation is complete, she should be removed from all student activities. My son should not have to share a campus with someone who attacked him. Principal Halden nodded slowly, almost satisfied to have someone else say the thing he clearly wanted to do. That may be a necessary temporary measure. Zarya felt the walls closing in, but she refused to let panic do their work for them. She sat straighter. I already asked for the cafeteria camera footage to be preserved, she said. My father is on his way. Mr. Maddox smirked. And who exactly is your father supposed to be? Someone who can walk in here and change school policy before Zarya could answer. The office door opened. A tall man in a dark jacket stepped inside without rushing, without raising his voice, without even looking impressed by the room full of people pretending to be powerful. Darius Coleman's eyes moved first to Zarya. Checking her face, her shirt, her posture. Only after he knew she was standing strong did he look at the others. Mr. Coleman, Halden said, forcing a professional tone. We were just discussing no. Darius interrupted calmly. You were discussing my daughter without me. The room went quiet. Darius walked to the desk and placed a business card in front of Principal Halden. The card was simple, but the words on it changed the air immediately. School security consultant, former district safety investigator, specialist in bullying cover-up reviews. Mrs. Maddox's expression tightened. Brock lowered his phone. Ms. Porter finally looked up. Darius did not threaten anyone. He did not shout. He simply turned his eyes to the principal and asked, has the cafeteria footage been backed up yet? Or do I need to call the district office right now? For the first time since Zarya entered the office, Principal Halden had no quick answer. And from that moment on, the power in the room began to shift. Darius Coleman did not sit down. He stood beside Zarya's chair with one hand resting lightly on the back of it, calm enough to make everyone else in the room feel louder than they wanted to be. Principal Halden shifted behind his desk, still trying to hold the authority he had enjoyed before Darius walked in. Tyler Maddox sat with the ice pack on his shoulder, no longer groaning as much. Brock Hensley kept his phone lowered now, his confidence shrinking with every second. Mia Caldwell's fake tears had dried completely, and Tyler's parents watched Darius with the irritation of people who had just realized money was not going to scare him. Start from the beginning, Darius said. Not from the part where my daughter defended herself. From the beginning. Tyler cleared his throat. She came in acting hostile. How Tyler blinked. She just had this attitude. That is not an action, Dario said. What did she do? Tyler looked toward Mia. Mia leaned forward quickly. She looked angry. Like, really aggressive. Darius turned to her. Did she touch Tyler first? Mia hesitated. No. But did she threaten him before he touched her? She told him not to touch her again. After he touched her, Mia's mouth tightened. I guess, but it sounded threatening. Darius nodded once, as if filing her answer away. Then he looked at Brock. You said you recorded everything. Brock swallowed. Yeah, I got the video. Then why does your video begin after Tyler is already on the floor? The room went still. Brock's thumb moved nervously along the edge of his phone. That's just when I started filming. Zarya looked at him, but said nothing. Tyler's eyes flicked down. Even Mrs. Maddox stopped adjusting her son's ice pack. Darius did not press harder. He did not need to. The silence had already exposed the crack. Principal Halden stepped in before the room could sit too long with that question. Mr. Coleman, I understand your concern, but the primary issue here is the injury caused by your daughter's response. No, Darius said evenly. The primary issue is who created the threat that forced a response. Halden's jaw tightened. We are still determining that. Good, Darius replied. Then let's determine it with the cafeteria footage. The principal's expression froze for half a second. He reached for the phone on his desk and called the school's technical assistant. Minutes later, a young staff member entered, carrying a tablet and looking deeply uncomfortable. Halden asked for the cafeteria camera feed from lunch period. The technician looked at the tablet, tapped twice, then swallowed. The system shows maintenance mode during that window. Zarya felt the temperature of the room change. She looked up at her father. Darius's face did not move, but his eyes sharpened. Maintenant mud. Right during the exact minutes when Tyler had raised a bat in the cafeteria. Right when the truth mattered most, Darius turned slowly toward Halden. Put that in writing. The principal frowned. Excuse me, document that the cafeteria camera was unavailable due to maintenance at the exact time a student used a bat against another student. It may have been a routine system issue, Halden said. Then documenting it should not be a problem. Mr. Maddox leaned forward, impatience breaking through his polished tone. This is ridiculous. These are teenagers. A cafeteria argument got out of hand. There is no need to turn this into some investigation. Darius looked at him for the first time. When a student raises a bat at another student, it stops being an argument. Tyler's face reddened. I wasn't going to hit her. You swung it, Zarya said quietly. I hit the table. You swung it near me. Ms. Elaine Porter suddenly took a shaky breath from the corner. Everyone turned. Her hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. He did have the bat first, she said, barely above a whisper. The words landed like a stone dropped into glass. Principal Halden snapped his head toward her. Ms. Porter, be careful. If you are not absolutely certain, you should not make statements that could inflame the situation. Elaine's face drained of color. She looked from Halden to Tyler's parents. Then down at the floor. The moment of courage collapsed under pressure, but it had happened. Everyone had heard it. Darius did not let it disappear. Thank you, Ms. Porter, he said. That statement also needs to be written down. Halden's control was slipping now, and the room could feel it. The edited video was no longer clean. Tyler's story no longer matched Mia's. Brock's recording had a suspicious beginning. The camera had somehow gone into maintenance mode, and the one adult witness had just admitted Tyler held the bat first. Still, it was not enough. Not yet. Without the full footage, Halden could keep delaying. The Maddox family could keep applying pressure. Brock could keep spreading the edited clip. The truth existed in fragments, but fragments could be buried. Then Zarya's phone vibrated in her pocket. She glanced down and saw a message from Nolan Pierce. I have the video from the beginning. But if Tyler finds out, I'm finished. Zaria's fingers tightened around the phone. Across the room, Tyler was still pretending to be the victim. Halden was still pretending to be neutral. Brock was still pretending his video told the truth. But now, somewhere outside that office, the proof was alive. The problem was getting it into the light before the bully found a way to silence the witness. Zaria asked for water. But what she really needed was 10 seconds away from the office, where everyone was trying to bury the truth under polished lies. Principal Halden did not like the request. But with Darius Coleman standing beside her, he could not refuse without looking even worse. Zaria stepped into the hallway, keeping her face calm as she passed the framed photos of smiling student-athletes and award ceremonies. The hallway behind the office was quieter than the cafeteria, but the silence felt just as dangerous. Near the library doors, Nolan Pierce stood half-hidden beside a bulletin board, his phone clutched in both hands. His face was pale, and his eyes kept jumping from one end of the hallway to the other. When Zaria approached, he whispered, "I shouldn't be doing this. You don't have to do anything alone." Zaria said. Nolan swallowed and turned his screen toward her. The video began before Brock's clip, before the fall, before the cafeteria started screaming. It showed Tyler lifting Zaria's tray and flipping it to the floor. It showed Brock pushing his camera into her face. It showed Mia lying with a smile behind her fake shock. It showed Tyler grabbing Zaria's backpack, yanking her backward, shoulder-checking her, tearing her sleeve, then walking to the baseball team's table and picking up the bat. The final seconds were undeniable. Tyler swung first, Zaria backed away. Tyler swung again. Only then did she move. For a moment, Zaria could not speak. The truth was right there, clear enough to cut through every lie in the principal's office. "Nolan," she said softly, "this proves everything. That's why I'm scared," he whispered. His fingers trembled around the phone. "You don't understand. Tyler doesn't just get people in trouble. He ruins them." His voice cracked as he looked toward the library windows. "Last semester, he locked me in the equipment room after gym. Brock filmed me banging on the door. By the next day, everyone was saying I had a panic attack for attention. Tyler told people I made it up. After that, nobody sat with me for weeks." Zaria's expression softened, but she did not push him. "You don't have to become a hero for everybody today," she said. "But you also don't deserve to carry this fear alone." Nolan looked at her like he wanted to believe that, like he almost could. But at the far end of the hallway, Brock Hensley stepped out from behind a row of lockers. He had seen enough. His eyes dropped to Nolan's phone, then snapped back to Zaria's face. Before either of them could move, Brock turned and hurried toward the office. Seconds later, Tyler Maddox appeared. He moved fast, the ice pack gone now, his injured act forgotten. Mia followed close behind him, already preparing another version of the story. Tyler stopped directly in front of Nolan, blocking the library entrance. "What are you doing with her?" he asked. Nolan tried to step back. "Nothing." Tyler leaned in close enough that Nolan flinched. "If that video shows up anywhere, you won't have one peaceful day left in this school. Not one." Zaria stepped forward, back away from him. Tyler's eyes flashed. "Stay out of it." Before he could move closer, Darius Coleman came around the corner. He did not run. He did not grab Tyler. He simply stepped between Tyler and Nolan, calm and solid as a locked door. "Repeat what you just said," Darius said. Tyler's mouth opened, then closed. "Say it again." Darius continued, this time in front of an adult. The hallway went silent. Tyler looked past Darius toward Principal Halden, who had followed them out with a tight expression. "Ms." Porter stood behind him, watching with the same guilt in her eyes. Tyler suddenly had nothing to say. Mia quickly stepped into the silence. "This is disgusting," she said, pointing at Zaria and Darius. They're pressuring Nolan. He's obviously scared because they're forcing him to help them. Nolan's head snapped up. That's not true. Mia ignored him. See, he can barely talk. They cornered him by the library. Once again, the story was being twisted in real time. The witness was becoming the victim of the wrong people. The bully was becoming misunderstood. The truth was being shoved backward before it could breathe. Nolan's fear shifted into something else. Not confidence, not yet, but anger. He looked at Tyler, then at Halden. It's not just today, he said. Tyler's face changed. Nolan unlocked his phone with shaking fingers. I have a whole folder. Videos, screenshots, dates. Tyler shoving people. Brock posting clips. Mia starting rumors. Some of us reported it. Nothing happened. Principal Halden's eyes sharpened. Nolan, be careful with accusations. That's what everyone keeps saying. Nolan whispered, be careful. Stay quiet. Don't make it worse. He began opening the folder, ready to send it to Darius. But Brock lunged from the side. Before anyone could stop him, he snatched Nolan's phone and slammed it onto the floor. The screen cracked across the tile with a sound that made everyone freeze. Tyler exhaled like he had just been saved. But Brock did not know one thing. Before Nolan ever stepped into that hallway, he had already done something much smarter. Brock Hensley stared down at Nolan Pierce's cracked phone like he had just destroyed the only bridge to the truth. The screen flickered once, then went black. Tyler Maddox's shoulders loosened, and for half a second, the old arrogance returned to his face. Mia Caldwell exhaled quietly, already preparing to say Nolan had panicked, that there was no real evidence, that Zarya and her father had pressured him into making wild accusations. Principal Halden looked almost relieved, but Nolan did not look defeated. He looked terrified. Yes, his hands were shaking, and his eyes were wet with panic. But beneath the fear was something Tyler had not expected: preparation. Nolan slowly looked at Zarya. I already sent it, he whispered. Tyler's face changed. Zarya pulled out her phone. A message from Nolan sat at the top of her screen with a cloud link attached. Darius Coleman saw it at the same time. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply turned toward Principal Halden and said, now this becomes a district matter. Halden Stefaned. That is unnecessary. We can handle this internally. No, Darius said. A witness's phone was just destroyed after he disclosed evidence of student violence and possible report suppression. I am notifying the district now. Within minutes, they were moved into a temporary discipline conference room. The air felt different there. Heavier. Less the Tyler sat beside Brock, no longer pretending to be injured. Mia kept her arms folded, eyes darting between Nolan and Zarya's phone. Ms. Elaine Porter sat near the wall, pale and silent. Principal Halden stood at the head of the table, trying to look in control, even as control slipped further from him with every passing second. Darius placed a call and sent a written notice before Halden could stop him. The message was short, formal, and devastating evidence related to a cafeteria assault may have been targeted for destruction, and prior bullying reports may have been mishandled. That wording alone forced the district to respond. A laptop was opened at the end of the table. A few moments later, Sylvia Grant, a district representative with sharp eyes and a calm, no-nonsense voice, appeared on the screen. I understand there has been an incident involving a weapon-like object. Student, self-defense. Destroyed evidence. And potentially missing reports, she said. Principal Halden cleared his throat. There has been a misunderstanding. Ms. Grant, emotions are high. Darius spoke before the principal could soften it further. Then, we should start with the unedited video. Zarya opened the cloud link from Nolan's message. Nolan's breath trembled as he nodded. It's mine, he said. I recorded it from the corner table. The video played on the conference room screen. No one spoke. It showed everything. Tyler lifting Zaria's tray and dumping her lunch onto the floor. Brock filming her face instead of Tyler's actions. Mia pretending to be shocked while encouraging the crowd. Tyler pulling Zaria backward by her backpack. Tyler shoving her with his shoulder. Tyler grabbing her sleeve hard enough to tear it. Zaria backing away with her hands open. Tyler walking to the baseball table. Tyler picking up the bat. Tyler swinging it down near the table. Tyler stepping closer and swinging again. Then, and only then, Zaria redirected his momentum and put him on the floor. Sylvia Grant leaned closer to her screen. Pause it there. The video froze on Tyler with the bat raised. For the first time all day. Tyler had no story left that fit the image. Mia's face went pale. Brock stared at the table. Halden's lips pressed into a hard line. Porter covered her mouth with one shaking hand. Then Nolan opened the second folder. This isn't the first time, he said. The files appeared one after another. A video of Tyler shoving a smaller student behind the gym. A clip of Brock laughing while recording a disabled student being mocked near the lockers. Screenshots of Mia spreading a rumor that forced a girl to change classes. Dates, names, message, reports. Each file added weight to the room until the silence became unbearable. Sylvia Grant's voice sharpened. Were these incidents reported? Nolan looked toward Miss Porter. Elaine closed her eyes for a moment, then finally spoke. Some of them were. Principal Halden turned toward her quickly. Elaine, no, she said, voice trembling but clearer now. I filed reports more than once. I was told not to escalate them because the baseball season was starting, and the team needed stability. Her eyes moved to Tyler, then to Zaria. I was told not to damage morale over what was called student conflict. Sylvia Grant's expression hardened. But I want all disciplinary records involving Tyler Maddox, Brock Hensley, and Mia Caldwell forwarded to my office immediately. Halden hesitated. That hesitation said too much. Principal Halden. Sylvia repeated. Slower this time. Now. Halden adjusted his tie. Some records may no longer be in the active system. The room went completely still. Darius looked at Zaria. Then back at the screen. Nolan sat frozen. Tyler's parents, who had once seemed so powerful, said nothing. Sylvia Grant's voice turned cold. Then this is no longer just a cafeteria incident. And with that single sentence, the attack against Zaria became something much bigger, an investigation into a system that had been hiding the truth for a long time. The emergency hearing at East Harbor High felt nothing like a school meeting. Parents filled the back rows. Teachers whispered near the wall. A few student representatives sat stiffly beside the district officials. Their faces serious. Their phones turned off for once. At the front of the room sat Zaria Coleman, calm but tired, with Darius beside her. Nolan Pierce sat 2 chairs away, hands locked together in his lap. Across from them, Tyler Maddox sat between his parents, no longer wearing the confident smirk he had carried through the cafeteria. Brock Hensley avoided looking at anyone. Mia Caldwell kept dabbing at her eyes, still hoping tears could do what lies no longer could. Tyler's family had arrived with a private attorney. And at first, they tried to control the room the same way they had controlled the school. The attorney stood and described Tyler as a student-athlete injured by an excessive physical response. He spoke carefully, leaving out the tray, the backpack, the torn sleeve, the bat, and the panic in the cafeteria. He made Tyler sound like a victim of one sudden moment, not the author of everything that led to it. Darius waited until the attorney finished. Then he rose with a folder in his hand. A sudden moment does not begin after the truth is cut out, he said. He laid out the evidence in order: Nolan's unedited video, Brock's clipped version, Ms. Porter's witness statement, The cafeteria camera marked as maintenance at the exact time of the incident. And the list of prior reports that had vanished or been softened into misunderstandings. The room grew quieter with each item. Sylvia Grant turned to Tyler. "Why did you pick up the bat?" Tyler swallowed. "I was just trying to scare her. I wasn't going to hit her." Sylvia's expression did not soften. A student who is threatened with a bat does not have to wait to be injured before defending herself. Tyler's father shifted angrily in his seat. But for once, no one rushed to rescue his son from the answer. Then Brock was questioned. "Why did you post a video that began only after Tyler was on the floor?" Sylvia asked. "That's all I had." Brock muttered. Nolan lifted his head. "No, it wasn't." His voice shook. But he continued. "He was recording before that. I saw him. He deleted the beginning because it showed Tyler starting it." Brock's face went pale. Mia was next. When asked why she claimed Zaria had threatened Tyler, she began crying harder. "I was scared," she said. "Tyler pressures people. I didn't want to be kicked out of the group." A student in the back suddenly stood. "That's not true," she said. "Mia isn't scared of Tyler. She helps him. She's the one who tells people what rumors to spread." The room erupted in whispers, and Mia's crying stopped for half a second too long. Then Miss Elaine Porter stood with trembling hands and placed printed emails on the table. "I kept copies," she said. "These show Principal Halden telling staff not to put Tyler's name in official reports because the team was in an important part of the season." The room went silent. Principal Halden stared at the papers like they had betrayed him. Sylvia Grant picked them up, read the first page, and looked directly at him. "This hearing is now part of a district-level investigation." Just as the board prepared to move toward a decision, Mr. Maddox stood so abruptly his chair scraped the floor. "If this school punishes my son based on this circus," he snapped, "our family withdraws every dollar of support. The field, the equipment, future donations gone." For years, that kind of threat had worked. But this time, no one rushed to calm him. Because this time, money was no longer enough to buy silence. Mr. Maddox's threat hung over the school board room like a final weapon. For years, money had spoken louder than complaints at East Harbor High. It had built fields, bought equipment, polished reputations, and quietly taught adults which students were worth protecting. But this time, after the videos, the missing reports, the altered records, and Ms. Porter's printed emails, the threat did not sound powerful. It sounded like proof that one wealthy family had made the school more afraid of losing donations than losing justice. No one rushed to comfort him. No one apologized. Sylvia Grant remained seated at the head of the table, her expression cold and controlled. "Mr. Maddox," she said, "your financial support does not give your son immunity from school policy." Her voice was calm, but every word struck the room with authority. And any attempt to influence disciplinary action through donations will be included in the district investigation. Tyler's father sat back down slowly, his face dark with anger. Tyler stared at the table, finally understanding that the room no longer belonged to him. Brock kept rubbing his hands together, eyes fixed on the floor. Mia looked smaller than she had all day, her popularity suddenly useless in a room where evidence mattered more than performance. Sylvia turned to the board members. "Effective immediately, this district will open an independent review of East Harbor High's disciplinary records, especially all reports connected to Tyler Maddox, Brock Hensley, and Mia Caldwell." She then looked directly at Tyler. "Tyler Maddox will receive a long-term suspension pending further review, and he will be removed from all athletic participation while the district considers additional consequences." Tyler's mother gasped. "You cannot destroy his future over one mistake." Darius Coleman spoke before Sylvia could answer. "One mistake is not a pattern with deleted paperwork." The room fell silent again. Brock was next. Sylvia stated that his actions would be reviewed for recording, editing, and distributing a misleading video, as well as destroying Nolan's phone in an attempt to interfere with evidence. Brock's face drained of color. For the first time, his phone was not a weapon. It was a record of his own cruelty. Mia was disciplined for giving false statements and participating in organized harassment. She tried to cry again. But this time, no one moved to save her from the consequences. The student who had spoken against her sat in the back row, shoulders lifted a little higher now. Then Sylvia turned to Principal Halden. Pending the investigation into missing reports and staff instructions regarding Tyler Maddox, you are placed on administrative leave. Halden's polished face cracked. That is extreme. What is extreme? Sylvia said. Is a school where students learned that silence was safer than reporting abuse. Ms. Elaine Porter lowered her head. She was not spared completely. Sylvia made it clear that failing to intervene had consequences. But her testimony and the emails she kept had opened the door that others had tried to lock. Nolan received official protection from retaliation. And for the first time, an adult from the district apologized to him for what he had endured, and for every report that had been ignored. Zarya did not smile. She did not celebrate Tyler's punishment, or Brock's fear, or Mia's humiliation. She understood that this was bigger than revenge. Tyler had attacked her, but the system had almost punished her for surviving it. The real victory was not watching him fall. It was watching the truth become too heavy for the adults to keep hiding. Outside the boardroom, students gathered in the hallway, whispering as Zarya walked out beside her father. Some looked ashamed. Some looked relieved. Nolan stood near the doorway, still nervous, but no longer invisible. A few weeks later, Zarya returned to the cafeteria, the same place where her lunch had been thrown to the floor, where laughter had become a weapon, where everyone had watched her be cornered. This time, when she stepped inside, the entire room went silent. But this return was not about fear anymore. It was about closing the wound they had all been forced to see. When Zarya Coleman walked back into the East Harbor High cafeteria, the room changed before she even reached the first table. There was no laughter this time. No phone shoved in her face. No cruel whispers traveling from one group to another. The same cafeteria that had once turned her humiliation into entertainment now fell into a silence heavy with memory. Students looked down at their trays. Some glanced at the spot where Tyler had flipped her lunch onto the floor. Others looked at Zarya with guilt, because they remembered how easily they had watched and how slowly they had helped. Zarya did not walk in like someone seeking applause. She walked in calmly, with her backpack on one shoulder and her head held steady. Nolan Pierce stood near a side table, nervous at first, then lifted his hand. For the first time since anyone could remember, he was not sitting alone with his eyes down. Zarya walked over and sat beside him. That simple act said more than any speech could. Nolan had been afraid, but he had still protected the truth. Now he was no longer invisible. A few students came forward quietly. One apologized for laughing. Another admitted she had seen Tyler grab the backpack but had been too scared to speak. Zarya listened without anger, but she did not pretend silence had been harmless. When people stay quiet, she said softly, innocent people can still get hurt. By the end of that week, East Harbor High had changed in ways no one could ignore. Cameras could no longer be placed in maintenance mode without a written record. Bullying reports were now sent directly to the district system. Witnesses were given protection from retaliation. Teachers and lunch supervisors were required to intervene instead of hiding behind weak warnings. The cafeteria that had once been a stage for cruelty had become the place where the whole school learned what responsibility looked like. Ms. Elaine Porter approached Zarya near the serving counter, her voice trembling. I should have spoken sooner. She said, I'm sorry. Zarya looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. She did not need revenge. She needed the truth to matter. Darius Coleman stood near the doors. watching his daughter with quiet pride. Laughter? He told her that the strongest thing she had done was not throwing Tyler to the floor. It was standing by the truth while everyone tried to twist it against her. The official notice came days later. Tyler would not return to the baseball team and would have to complete a behavioral accountability program before any return to campus was considered. Brock and Mia faced their own consequences. But the real ending was not punishment. It was the lesson left behind. Zarya sat at the same table where her tray had once been thrown down. This time, no one laughed. No one recorded to mock her. The whole cafeteria understood that the girl they thought was easy to break had changed the entire school. True strength is not making people fear you. True strength is standing tall when the whole room tries to make you bow. If you had been in that cafeteria, would you have stayed silent or stood up for the truth? Comment below where you are watching from today. As this story comes to an end, one thing becomes clear. The biggest victory was never the moment Zarya put Tyler on the floor. It was the moment she refused to let lies become the truth. When everyone expected her to stay silent, she stood her ground. When powerful people tried to protect the wrong side, courage, evidence, and a few honest voices changed everything. This wasn't just a story about bullying. It was a reminder that silence helps injustice grow, while truth has the power to change an entire community. Now we want to hear from you. If you had been in that cafeteria, would you have stayed silent? Or would you have stood up for Zarya and told the truth? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories that prove courage can change everything.